Maybe it's going to be like Data's head in that episode of TNG where they just go back to the cave and it's been there for hundreds of years. Remember that? Yeah, they're going to go back. They're going to go to the future without the La Serena. Come back. The La Serena is still there, undisturbed, like 400 years later. That's how it's going to end. That's going to be great.
Stardate 346. Now, through an unknown force, a totally new age is about to begin. Is it God's will or the irony of fate? And still, mankind makes its way where no one has gone before. People say the universe is a star ocean.
Well, Picard Season 2 was going okay. It was going just okay. But sad to say that this episode feels like Season 1. This episode is a mysterious lost episode from the first season that didn't get aired. Has all the hallmarks of Season 1. Which basically just means bad things, because there was almost nothing good in Season 1, if I may be so bold. This is Picard Season 2, assimilation. What are we assimilating? Who's getting assimilated? Are we getting assimilated? Well, let's find out about that. Well, to put it simply, this episode kept going with the breakneck pace of the past episodes. However, it was very short, and you could feel that when you watched it. I remember when this episode ended, I was shocked. I thought, I can't be hearing the credits music already. There's got to be more, right? Well, there wasn't. But this episode clocked in at, I think, 42, 43 minutes if you cut out the previously on in the intro and the credits. So, at the end of the day, we got a short episode. Maybe it's for the better, because it wasn't very good. And a short piece of crap is better than a long piece of crap. Am I right? Filled with logical inconsistencies, questionable dialogue choices, and flip-flopping on the tone like you wouldn't believe. Picard, Season 2, Episode 3, Assimilation. It's not a mixed bag, it's just a bad bag. It's a bag of mostly bad. Gone are the improvements we saw in Episode 1. Gone are the slight downgrades in Episode 2. And back to the bad old days of Season 1 for Episode 3. Without further ado, let's dive down into this pile of garbage that is Episode 3 and find out what went wrong and what, if any, went right. We're calling this episode Assimilation, so someone's getting assimilated, correct? We'll get into that later. But to put it simply, we have the Borg Queen on board, the La Serena. Ship's still hideous, and we're doing the warp slingshot around the sun, because we need to go back in time to find the Watcher at the behest of the Borg Queen. Who is the Watcher? We still don't know. Is it Guinan? We don't know. Is it another Borg? We don't know. Perhaps it's a Borg left over from a previous time travel incursion. Have you noticed that the Borg have been involved in 3 different events on Earth before their supposed first contact with the Federation in TNG? Have you noticed that? We had First Contact, the movie, where they went back in time to 2063. We had the episode in Star Trek Enterprise where they found, again, previously undiscovered Borg, was it a sphere? A Borg sphere, I think they found, buried under ice in 2152 or 53, something like that. And now we have a Borg Queen going back to Earth to 2024. So that's 3 times. We've had Borg infringing on our timeline. as it were, our canon timeline. This time using actual time travel, and the first time in First Contact using time travel again, and the second time just having been frozen in ice like a time capsule. Borg. Can't forget the Borg. What's popular? The Borg. We're going to make this new show about Picard. What's going to be in it? The Borg. Data. What did people like from TNG? Well, they liked the Borg. They liked Data. What else did they like? Well, they liked tea. Let's make sure to cram all that in here, even if it doesn't make sense. Imagine if we discovered something new in this show. Wouldn't that be grand? So her slingshot maneuver seems to work with the aid of the Borg Queen, taking full control of the ship. She also uses her control of the ship to defend from two different relatively good-looking cannon ships, I believe a Steam Runner and a Nova, that are on hot pursuit, trying to stop them from going back in time and altering their future, which is the Confederation of Planets, I guess? Confederacy? I don't know. The ships, they do look canon, but they do look like old models. The 3D CGI work on them, it leaves a little bit to be desired. I can't quite put my finger on it, but the model work here, we need some better lighting for it. We need a little bit more time spent on it, and we need to make it feel like these models were built recently and not ported over from something that was made 10 years ago. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it and they're brand new, but to me, the model work here, number one, CG model work can never compare to the genuine article, which is handcrafted model work, in my opinion. But as far as CGI models go, this is maybe a 7 out of 10. Just good enough. Believe me, I have some experience. I don't know why I just looked back there. I don't know what that... I think that fly just went by, and we gotta try to capture that later before it flies into the instruments and causes a problem. We're going back to the past. And Picard takes control of the ship and somehow redirects it from Los Angeles to what I assume is Chateau Picard, but we got the lofty, heady dialogue laden with mystery and slathered with pointless, esoteric nonsense because Rios asks, "Where are you going?" And then Picard says, "Home." Why? Why wouldn't he just say, we're going to Chateau Picard? Just say that. I guess that's where we're going. There seems to be nobody there. We crashed the ship in what, may I add, was a very nice crashing job. Like an old man slipping into a warm bath, as it were. Nobody seems to be too jostled by it. I don't know if anybody even fell out of their seat. So, good job on crashing the La Serena. It's kind of a strange compliment to give. Good job crashing. But everyone seems to be okay. But Borg's out of power. We did survive a physical encounter with Confederacy Starfleet security. Is that what they call it? Confederation Starfleet? I don't know. But Elnor's hurt. And because the Borg had to take all that power from the ship to either make the time jump or keep her systems working, Elnor cannot use the biobed. Unfortunately, Elnor dies because of this. You know that the one character who added a bit of levity to the situation, he seemed kind of funny, young and youthful, a bit psychotic, what with the head chop offiness. But I would take psychotic and fun over dour and boring. Maybe. Anyway, just so he can't have any fun at all, he's dead. But I have a feeling this is not the last time we're going to see Elnor. I have a feeling that we just might be seeing him come back. Because no one's ever really gone, right? No one's ever really gone. Especially when we're dealing with time travel shenanigans, am I right? So Raffi is having a mental breakdown, as you would if you've replaced your actual family with your fake family, that being Elnor. If you remember from the season before, she was estranged from her own son, and I was hoping beyond hope that maybe she would have patched that up, and because we should be good people, we should get along, and we should reconnect with our family, not take on some other family that we don't even know, like Elnor. Very nice that Raffi was looking after Elnor as she was, but it really feels like in this episode that she's taking it as if somebody killed her own child, which he isn't. Elnor was an adult who knew what he signed up for in Starfleet, and now he's dead, and Raffi just chews out Picard, and we have the discovery scene. This episode has a discovery scene where we're comparing our tragedy, and Picard says something like, I know what you're feeling, and then Raffi says, no, I promise you, you don't know what I'm feeling, that this guy just died, and I'm using him as my surrogate son. You don't know that feeling. Raffi is wrong. Picard does know that feeling. How can you get this far in Starfleet and not understand that? Picard was captain of the Enterprise. He sent countless people to their deaths, and he had to deal with every single one. And you think he doesn't know the feeling of losing people near and dear to him? He's lost his family. Off screen, though, in Star Trek Generations. He's lost countless crew members. Many he wasn't close with. Some he was. And he had to take that pain with him, bottle it up, and then defeat it. Okay? Because we were in Starfleet, and we didn't let tragedy weigh us down. We took a moment to grieve, and we snapped, and we went back to what we were doing. Because the mission at hand takes precedence. Raffi does not understand this. I don't know how, but she has an outburst befitting of a 10-year-old. And her dialogue in this episode is something you would see if a particularly edgy 13-year-old was writing a Disney TV movie. And you'll see in this episode, if you watch it, many things that just feel like a sitcom, feel like Disney, feel like a cartoon. It's all very sad. And it feels like those things in the worst possible ways. We have to figure out how to find the Watcher, number one. And number two, we have to keep the Borg Queen alive. Jurati and Picard stay behind to look after the Borg Queen. Rios, Seven, and Raffi teleport to Los Angeles. But listen, don't take your phaser. Rios is implored not to take his phaser, because anything from the future, they're going to find it, and they're going to realize that something's going on. You're an alien, or you're a time traveler. Big no-no. But listen, you can keep the badge. By all means, keep the badge. But, God forbid, we take the phaser. I can think of a million things probably on that ship that you could take that could maybe pass for things from 2024 that would help you a lot. Like, put together a little survival kit, at least, you know? Maybe some food. Maybe, pens, paper, I don't know, things like that. A little knife, you know? There's usually things like that on ships, even in the distant future. I can find a pen and paper here if I really wanted it. I'm sure it's somewhere. Come on. You can't take anything but your body and your badge. I just don't believe it. You're going to what is essentially an alien world. You're from the future. The past is a different country. The future is an undiscovered country. But we are in a different country nonetheless. So, Raffi and Seven beam down just fine. Seven, of course, beams right in front of a young child. And holy crap, this child literally saw a person beam down in front of her. And she just says, shh, keep it a secret. it's sheer luck that she didn't beam down in front of a bunch of people. You realize that, right? Like, this plot is now, once something like that happens, you realize you are in the realm of a plot that is dealing with luck as a factor. And anytime luck becomes a factor in the plot, your mind immediately has to switch into a mode where we're dealing with the rule of cool and not the rule of reality. You know what I mean? Things happen because the writers wanted them to happen, not because they could or should happen, but because it would be cool or interesting or fun. And it's not befitting of this genre, and it's not really befitting of Star Trek. Although, this rule has been broken many times in this franchise, but just because you did it before doesn't make it right. It's a fallacy to say, hey, we did it before, why can't we do it again? No. You've done it before, now do it better. If you always do what came before and use that as a justification for why you can get away with nonsense now, nothing ever gets better. Does that make sense? Regardless, we're wandering around in past LA, and my skin is still crawling to this moment. This horrible music from what I assume was the 20s. It's just I mean, I'm a child of the 2220s, and we don't listen to that kind of thing anymore. We listen to mostly classical. Things that are enlightening, not things that are emburdening. And it's something of the California something. It's some kind of musical number, and if you like that, fantastic. It's a purely subjective thing, but my bones are still rattling from hearing that showing up in my Star Trek. Dang it. And we see what looks to be a lot of stock footage of, frankly, 20s LA. The roaring 20s, as it were. I think. I'm not so up on my Earth history. I'm an engineer, not a historian. And we see a sign in the background that says to boldly go, and it's advertising some mission to Europa. And now the phrase to boldly go, originally belonging to Kirk, then retroactively given to Zefram Cochrane, now retroactively pushed further into the past as an advertising slogan. Okay. Also, it says Sanctuary District. We're walking around in this hobo encampment, homeless, impoverished, I don't know what you call it, but these people look very poor. And while the Sanctuary District looks like it was designed for a narrative purpose, as it appeared in DS9, this appears like you just pointed a camera out your window at that time, which is very unfortunate. We're wandering around and we get mugged already. What do you know? We're 1 second in, and we already needed our phaser. But we didn't take that. But we have our spooky, scary, futuristic comm badge, which is a very little help in this episode, by the way. And wouldn't you know it, Raffi steals this guy's money. She beats him down and takes this thieve's money. I don't know. And there's lots of colorful metaphors in this episode, by the way. Lots of colorful metaphors that I didn't need to hear. At least we're not in the future now. So the cursing is par for the course for the time in which this takes place. Unfortunately, that's a very damning statement to make if you realize those colorful metaphors also take place in the future of this show. Very damning if you take it that way. Raffi and Seven are on the top of some high building, and they're using their height to amplify tricorder range. And they trick the security guard in the silliest. They just say, your boss is funnier than you, is he? And he'd let us through. He's not funnier than me. You can go through. I mean, I imagine if you've never talked to a security guard before in your entire life, You might think something like that. You might think you could just appeal to his vanity to get past him. Like, again, it's like a child wrote it. It's like I wrote it when I was 6. That would be my idea of how you got past a security guard. You just appeal to their sense of vanity and hope that he lets you through. Relying on luck, relying on bad writing conventions, relying on, frankly, warped and twisted ideas of how reality operates, especially in the dark and distant, putrid miasma of 2024. It's frightening to say the least. Okay, so that's the Seven and Raffi story. Let's move back to Rios. What happened to Rios? Unfortunately, he transports above the ground and smashes his head against the sidewalk, and miraculously, he's just picked up by Good Samaritan hospital staff. It's just a cut. He's landing on the ground, blood coming out of his head, and then we just cut to him in a hospital. Good thing someone like Raffi didn't come along and steal all his stuff. Good thing we didn't have a Raffi walking around. He ended up in a hospital run by this character named Teresa, and she says they run a hospital where they don't gauge or gauge your wallet. I've never heard anybody say gauge or gauge or whatever they said instead of gouge. I think they meant gouge your wallet, but they said it in this weird way. I don't know. Forgive me for looking provincial, perhaps, but I've always said gouge. And what you learn eventually is that this is a hospital for illegal aliens of the spatial kind, not of the temporal kind, like Rios is. So it has a double meaning to it, a kind of, if you would interpret it in that way. And he has this awkward dialogue with this child, Rios, after he gets his hand fixed, where he calls him a Vulcan. Logic, huh? You're like a little Vulcan. I hate Vulcans. He doesn't really say that, but you probably shouldn't be talking about Vulcans to kids in 2024. Not that anyone's going to believe him, but I wouldn't want to set the precedent in my mind and accidentally say it to someone who might believe me, if you catch my drift. This kid plays a joke on him. My parents are dead. Ha ha ha, got ya. Now give me back my badge, you little creature. Rios doesn't get the badge back because at that exact moment, after a disturbing Rick and Morty reference, Teresa tells him, you better do this and that or you get no Rick and Morty. But is there not Star Trek references in Rick and Morty? I've never seen Rick and Morty, but I have to imagine if I type in my console here, Rick and Morty Star Trek references, I'm going to see some things. So this child has seen Star Trek references visually, and he has a guy telling him about a Vulcan, and he's holding a badge, a comm badge. Back on topic, they're getting sieged by some type of immigration patrol. Some people that don't want them operating this hospital for people who don't belong in that country or something. And it's odd because Teresa said that I'm a U.S. citizen and I know my rights, and I'm thinking, okay, well, if you're a U.S. citizen, you operate this hospital, and nobody pays anything, you must be operating with donations or government funding, correct? If you're operating with government funding, shouldn't a government-operated immigration patrol team know everything about the hospital? And therefore, if they did, why would they not block both entrances? The back entrance isn't blocked. They just come in through the front door. And they come in violently as well. They don't sneak in, like you'd imagine. They violently come through the front door only. I don't know. Is that how that works? I wouldn't do that. It just seems like we needed a pointless excuse to get these people out of the building. I don't know. Rios still, his hand is still visibly broken, and he tries to disguise himself as a doctor to create a diversion to get Teresa to safety. It doesn't work because he still has his broken hand. Of course they're gonna say, you're not a doctor, you're a patient. Your hand just broke. Very smart, Rios. Very smart. I mean, we left the phaser behind, but all we've done is get caught. That kid has absconded with the badge. Rios is being arrested. He's been looked at by hospital staff who have no doubt seen odd futuristic chemicals in his body. They do say vaccination chips or something like that, which is weird because up until this time in Star Trek, we've had characters be biologically scanned by alien races, and they've never said anything about the presence of chips or nanites. Up until this point, I thought the average human in Starfleet was relatively fully biological. I mean, medicine being what it was, why would you need nanites flying around in your body all the time? I don't know. It's just, I've never heard of it before, but I guess it's there now. I guess it's something they just invented in 2390 something. The idea that you have chips flying around your body, I don't know. Normally what we would do now, we would take a pill of nanites and it would heal our body, and then we would take another pill to deactivate them, and then they would come out in our urine. Usually that's what we do here. But I guess we've gone backwards in the future, so whatever. Yeah. If you sum up the Rios and Seven plot, they're on top of a building doing nothing. Rios' badge is gone, and he's being arrested. And by the way, you can hear people trying to contact him over the badge. Like, you'd think they would have some kind of code, like, so that they didn't sound like they were talking through it, like maybe just a little click sound, you know? Like, when I click this many times, and you click back once, that means you're answering. Because you don't want to be talking to some random person through a comm badge in your own past, where you can affect the timeline in very frightening and drastic ways. We don't need to explain that to these people, I don't think. I don't think that concept is lost on them. Alright, back to the La Serena. It's been what I presume a day, at least, and nobody has found the La Serena. What is essentially a UFO has landed in a forest in France somewhere in 2024, and no one has come to see what it was. I have to assume that there's some plot device reason why we need to land it on Earth, because otherwise would the writers not just make it so it stayed in orbit? Like, make it so that the La Serena had just enough power left to stay in orbit and leave its cloak on. That way it wouldn't cause a problem in the story, but now it is causing a weird logical problem. So there must be some reason later on why it has to land on Earth. Maybe it's going to be like Data's head in that episode of TNG where they just go back to the cave and it's been there for hundreds of years. Remember that? Yeah, they're going to go back. They're going to go to the future without the La Serena. Come back, the La Serena is still there, undisturbed, like 400 years later. That's how it's going to end. That's going to be great. So, Jurati and Picard are trying to manage the Borg Queen, and Jurati has this harebrained idea to allow herself to get partially assimilated so she can go into the Borg Queen's mind and extract the necessary information on the Watcher. You've got to be squidding me. Okay? We're gonna allow Jurati to get partially assimilated. Like, there's no partial assimilated. Once it starts, if you even touch Borg crap, and you get those nanites in your body, and you see it you can visually see it growing on you. You have to frigging chop the limb off, or you have to get in there with your own nanites and manually scoop them out. You can't just do it a little bit. And they plug this cord directly into Girardi's neck, and she comes up with all manner of technobabble excuses why this can work. Frankly, I was so distracted by it, I couldn't even pay attention. I was in a thick fog at that moment, and I didn't know what she was saying. And neither did Picard, I bet. So he just went along with it. Whatever. Plug her in. Girardi starts to get assimilated, but there's no Borg nanites. There's no particles. There's no Borg crap growing on her body, and I'm just thinking, what is this? What's happening? How are we mitigating the speed of the assimilation? What exactly are we doing? What did we learn about how the Borg operate that we didn't know a few years ago? What is this? Why is Jurati not converted into a Borg now? They unplug it after a while and she's fine, but not after she has a moment to chastise Picard again, because the shadowy specter of season 1 has returned and we're back to screaming at Picard. Raffi screams at Picard. And when Jurati is being assimilated, she takes a moment to chastise Picard about nothing, about things he didn't do. This isn't his fault. Elnor didn't die. Elnor dying wasn't his fault. And whatever Jurati is screaming about isn't his fault. But Picard just has to take it because this is season 1 Picard back. He just has to go, I'm sorry. I'm not going to get mad at anybody anymore for being stupid. Because I'm stupid and I'm just going to take all the abuse I can get. Oh well, I'm Picard. Jurati says something like, I hate you because I wish you were my father and you're bad at everything and blah blah blah, and there's so many mysterious things going on. And then we get into a fight and Jurati grabs Picard's hand, and then, whose hand is that? Mine. And the Queen and Jurati are both saying that, and you're taking the frightening prospect of assimilation with Jurati, with any human for that matter, and you're reducing it to a fight over a toy between 2 3-year-olds. Mine. So any creepy atmosphere that you were generating with regards to tone using the Borg Queen is completely dissipated. I was, frankly, when we introduced the Borg Queen in episode 2, and at the beginning of this episode, I thought she was pretty creepy. I thought they were establishing a good creepy tone with the Borg Queen, but they just dashed that now, and we've turned the Borg Queen into our plaything. It wasn't bad enough that we had to destroy the Borg every 5 seconds in previous movies and in previous television shows and episodes. We had to just denigrate them more by taking the Borg Queen and turning her into a glorified mannequin that just stands around and allows the plot to happen, with no agency in what's going on either. God dang. At least she got a chance to destroy those Confederation ships, the Nova and the Steamrunner, I believe they were, shooting them just one torpedo into their what appeared to be their navigational deflectors, immediately destroying them. At least she did something kind of spooky. But now we have children's plaything Borg Queen and annoying Jurati, who is just the ghostly image of Tilly back from the dead, if I might say. Disappointing, dumb, ugly. Jurati does steal the information about the Watcher. Interestingly, Jurati is so smart with computers that she can outsmart the Borg Queen in her own domain. Okay, she's in the Borg Queen's mind. She's in her cybernetic mind palace. And Jurati invades it, steals the information. The Borg Queen can't make a copy. And now they have that bargaining chip against the Borg Queen. They have the information they need, and the Borg Queen has nothing. The Borg Queen doesn't even have legs that she wanted. At least give her some legs. But I digress. We know apparently who the Watcher is, and apparently when the Watcher is. Rios is in jail, I suppose, and Seven and Raffi are just on top of some building. I guess at the least you could say that we moved the plot forward very fast in a short amount of time, which gave me whiplash on a few different occasions as to what was happening. But a very bland episode. Not a lot to say. ugly, it's sad, it's disappointing. It takes place in the past. Who wants to see that? Not me. But we're right back to punching people. We're right back to hurting people. We're right back to inflicting serious damage to innocent people. We did kill those Confederation security officers at the beginning, and we don't know they deserved it. Just because they were part of the Confederacy, whatever that is, we don't know that they should have died. I guess these guns just don't have a stun setting, because you think they would have used it, right? I'm pretty sure Seven said last season to never kill somebody just because they deserved it. Isn't that what she learned? Are we undoing that character arc? Did our characters actually have character arcs at all, ever? Or are we just writing this because we thought it would be cool? I'll let you decide. That was Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 3, Assimilation. And we're going to assimilate this show a review score, whatever that means. So what kind of score are we going to give this one? Frankly, it was worse than the past 2 Picard episodes, and it was worse than the past 2 Discovery episodes, in my honest opinion. I'm going to have to go with... the best I can do is a 4.5 for this episode. It's the best I can do. It's a little bit worse than not having any episode at all, honestly, and I wish I didn't see it. It was boring, sad, depressing, ugly. The only reason I didn't give it a 3 was because we did see some classic Star Trek ships at the beginning. We did have a few amusing scenes between Rios, Teresa, and that kid. You'll know what I'm talking about if you watch the episode. They were amusing, if not strange. And that's about all I could... If those things were not in it, I would have gave this a 3. Because there's really nothing else can redeem this episode. Musically, there's nothing really going on. Like, we have access to the TNG medley of motifs, and we're not using them to great effect. Then again, I don't know if I'd want them to, because you'd be ruining it in such a bad episode. Visually, what's there to say? We're just walking around in the present day, and it looks about as bad as the present day does. That is, if you live in 2024, which I do not. Philosophically, what are we saying? The past is bad? 7 seems to like it. I don't know why. 7 seems to be getting along just fine in 2024. Just so we can throw shade at our much better future. You tell me what the hell that means. Why 7 is happy about being in the world of 2024. I don't know what the hell it means. People treat her differently? Well, that's because she doesn't look like a Borg. It's obvious. Just because people treat me differently, I guess this future's alright. This past's alright, I mean to say. I don't know, maybe it'll mean something by the end. Disappointing. I was expecting better from this season. I don't know why I was. It's all the same people involved making this as made the last season and everything else Star Trek related in the past few years. There's a reason they all feel the same. You know. Maybe go watch Deep Space Nine. Go watch that instead. They go back to a similar time period in that show. Granted, I don't really love my time travel plots, but a better version of this episode can be seen included in Deep Space Nine. And you don't have to wait around for it to stream anywhere. You can probably just go buy it now. Well, this crappy episode has certainly assimilated me. Are you assimilated? I've been assimilated by something, and it ain't good. Alright, I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I gotta get the hell out of here before I freak out. This week is my last Star Trek twofer, which is to say the last time I need to watch 2 episodes pretty much back to back, and I'm glad it's over. Once we just get through this, Discovery's done, and we just gotta skate through Picard somehow. We'll survive it, don't worry, we can survive it. And then we can do Prodigy and Strange New Worlds. Come on. We're so close. We just gotta push through. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're almost there. I'm Lieutenant Mark, leaving you on a better note than I just did a moment ago. See you guys pretty soon with the next episode of Discovery. Bye-bye.